In March 2023, Four Corners on the ABC ran a story about what they termed the secret tactics in the real estate industry. It added fuel to the fire about whether real estate agents and buyers agents can be trusted. Today, we're going to give you our top 5 tips on dealing with real estate agents.
Welcome to Your First Home Buyer Guide, the podcast for first home buyers who want to get it right.
I'm Meighan and that was Veronica. We're both buyers agents and probably old enough to be your mums. But that's a good thing because between us we've got over 40 years experience and we are going to share with you bucket loads of stories about avoidable mistakes. Together we're going to make sure that you get unbiased and real information that you can rely on so you can get where you want to be without missing a step.
Now, we've got loads of great tips for you in this episode, and if you'd like more useful tools, head over to the website homebuyeracademy.com.au. There you'll find free checklists that you can download, a free mini course on how to price a property, and our Where to Buy workshop for only $39. Priceless stuff, really.
Bargain. But before we get into the interesting stuff in this week's episode, here's the boring bit, the disclaimer. You, of course, know that nothing in this podcast is to be taken as personal advice. We always recommend getting the advice of an expert in their field of expertise. Now, we've done our very best to ensure that the content is correct at the time of recording, but things change. So check with the relevant government authority or your advisors to get the most up-to-date information.
Today we're talking about dealing with agents. Now, it's not the first time that we've discussed this on the podcast, but this episode has our top 5 tips for dealing with agents in the search of your first home. And of course, before we get into that, Meighan has a very strange house behind her in the video. Check this out. This is called the Falcon Nest. It's a 10-story dwelling. 10-story dwelling! Whose 124-foot structure, I should have converted that, I don't know how many meters that is, high, really high, makes it the tallest single-family home in North America. Unbelievable. I mean, it teeters over the top of everything around it. I'm hoping it's got a lift. Can you imagine? Going up all those stairs. It's almost like living in Centrepoint Tower. It's so ugly. Family. Yeah, it's horrendously ugly. Architects like to push the boundaries, and those boundaries aren't always pretty. It's a shame, really, I think. But anyway, someone loves it. Have we ever put that house on, the one that's down in in Victoria,
yes,
down along the Great Ocean Road? We've done that one. That was one of the first episodes, actually. That was fantastic. It's called the Pole Home. Yeah, down on the Great Ocean Road. That one's a bit weird. I prefer to be in that than the one behind you right now. Oh, the view down there is just phenomenal. It's incredible. Very windy, though. That's what, Imagine cleaning those windows, Veronica. That's what my mum would think. Yeah, you want one of those external things that just was there and anyway, whatever. I've got the magnets on either side anyway, we digress. You want that, but it could get blown off. If the wind's strong enough, it could blow those things off the window. According to a survey in 2022 about the most trusted professions in Australia, the 3 least trusted were advertisers, used car salesmen, and real estate agents. Now, those last 2 have been at the bottom 3 for a number of years, but first-time advertisers have been there. And I would hazard a guess that influencers might fall into that category too. Yes, potentially. It sort of says a lot, doesn't it? Look, Four Corners on the ABC ran an expose in March 2023 on the secret tactics some agents use and, touched on some dodgy buyers agents too, which is a bit of a worry from our side of the fence. Now, there are about 70,000 real estate agents across the country. Nobody actually knows how many buyers agents there are, but there's best estimates are around about 1,800 to 2,000. But let's just look at the 70,000 sales agents or just actually real estate agents, because the thing is that real estate agents cover auctioneers, cover property managers, covers sales agents, covers buyers agents, covers business agents, covers stock and station agents. What else? Strata managers, and also a bunch of people that have a real estate license that don't actually operate as a real estate agent. A lot of accountants, a lot of people, brokers. Yeah, there's a lot of people, a lot of real estate licenses
floating around. A lot of people with different personalities, values, and ethics.
It's certainly true. It's just like any industry, really, isn't it? You know, I'm not sweeping it under the carpet. I'm certainly not making excuses for anybody, but you know, that's the world we live in. The fact is, though, when you're searching for your first home, you come into contact with so many real estate agents that it might feel overwhelming and frustrating, because you probably are going to deal with some that you just don't feel you can trust.
It's funny, you say just like any industry, and like every industry does have its bad eggs, but the problem is with the property industry is that it is a very low barrier to entry.
Absolutely.
With the potential to make very high earnings. And so that is a bit of a recipe for disaster, as well as, you know, and on that show, we could see that we're not regulated, I don't think. I don't think the regulators have the teeth to properly enforce the regulations. But anyway, you might start to feel like all agents are dodgy, and I could sort of understand why.
Yeah.
They're not all dodgy, though.
No, and the reason that we know that, Veronica, is we deal with scores of agents every week. In, you know, buyers agents, their main points of contact are real estate agents. So, you know, we've seen the good, we've seen the bad, we've seen the downright dodgy. Yeah, they do exist. I'm not proud of it. I don't like it. I'd like to see it stamped out. But human beings are human beings, and some human beings will flaunt what they can to get the best return for themselves that they possibly can. You know, with decades of practice, we know how to work with each of these types of agents. So take notes, everybody.
And we can get frustrated too. There are times when we're yelling and screaming, not at them, in the background.
Put the phone down. Actually, don't put the phone down. Press end on the phone and then,
you know, but we've got each other and we've got our teams to sort of all bitch about them with, and then
have
put
a
our
download and say, how would you deal with this? This is the situation I've just encountered. Yeah.
We do that all the time. And then we put our poker face on and we go back out there and we go into battle. But it is a given that you're going to have to deal with real estate agents if you want to buy a home, right? And unless you engage a buyer's agent to act on your behalf, you know, where you
then you can avoid them altogether.
You can. But, you know, as the episode showed, not all buyer's agents are the same. And we've discussed that too back in, what was it, episode
32.
Yes. Well, we gave you all the tools you need to choose a buyer's agent back there, I should say. So go back and listen to that one. If you're thinking about getting a professional on board, I would say sort of before we go through these 5 tips for you, or is that honestly, and I've done a lot of work to look through the qualifications to become a real estate agent and a buyer's agent. And seriously, if you do our course, you will know more than pretty much every new buyer's agent hitting the market. So, you know, just doing our course will help you make a better decision on the buyer's agent you choose. And I think that was what was quite alarming with this episode, was that for anybody thinking, oh, well, the easy answer is to get a buyer's agent, someone who can represent me, what we're here to tell you, you need to learn some skills around how to choose a good buyer's agent as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because a buyer's agent could actually end up costing you more than just their fee. It could end up costing you the wrong property. It could end up costing you the wrong price. It could end up costing you a lack of due diligence. The amount of, you know, the discussion, the lack of discussion, I think, from some buyer's agents around what is good due diligence, what is thorough due diligence. It's not just doing a building and pest inspection and a bank valuation. That's not due diligence. It's not just having a solicitor look over your contract and do the conveyance process for you. That's only a small part of the due diligence. It is so much more and so much bigger than that.
That is just like the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. But look, for most buyers, a buyer's agent's out of reach. You know, it's a cost that you just can't add into saving up your deposit, whether that's 10, 15, 20%, whatever you've determined with your mortgage broker is the right amount. They're really out of reach. So really a real estate agent is your main point of contact, or they are the main contacts you'll have during the process, the most people that you'll kind of run into. Now in your first home buyer guide, we give you bucket loads of tips and strategies, even cheat sheets on how to deal with agents, questions to ask, how to gather information, how to do your due diligence. And way back in episode 67, we did a whole episode on the topic of dealing with agents. So this time, what we thought we would do in light of the Four Corners episode that was on, we're just going to give you the top 5 tips that we've got on how to deal with agents so that you do feel confident. And if you don't feel like you can trust them, then you know how to get the information that you need so that you can still move on with the process.
Yeah, and what to believe and what the limitations are of what they are going to tell you. You know what I mean? Because I think some people assume an agent's going to tell them everything they need to know, and the agent won't and doesn't have to even. And I know that's horrific, but it's true. And so this is
very different in every state.
Absolutely. And the thing is, as a purchaser, you're going to spend the most amount of money that you've ever spent on anything in your life, right? Do the work. Make sure that you protect yourself, because at the end of the day, the buck stops with you. It doesn't matter how crooked these people are or are not. There are certain things they do have to tell you, and when they're outside of legislation, they may or may not get penalised. But there's other things that they don't have to tell you that you need to know, and you need to know what that is, how to find that information. And that is your responsibility as a buyer. Rightly or wrongly, it's the fact. That's the way it is.
Caveat emptor, let the buyer beware. And that is the premise in most states, actually. Let's get into it, Veronica. Our top 5 tips for dealing with agents. Firstly, number 1, and most important, number 1 Home Buyer Academy home buying principle is the real estate agent does not represent you. Listen to it again. The real estate agent does not represent you. Don't get cranky with them if they are doing their job. Their job is to represent the seller and to get the highest price for the property. That's their job. It's the fiduciary obligation. It's what they're employed to do and what their agency agreement with the seller instructs them to do.
So they don't have an obligation to you.
None.
Other than in doing the job for the seller, the vendor, they've got to look after buyers,
And they can't misrepresent. I guess they can't misrepresent the property.
They can't.
But there's a lot they can do in terms of influence, and I guess that's what that Four Corners, part of that Four Corners episode was actually some of the tactics that are used to get you to pay more money, or to get you interested in a property, or to get you to make an offer. They're not illegal in that way, but you just need to have your eyes open to them so that you can make your own independent decisions. They're a huge part. Real estate agents are a huge part of your journey. You can't avoid them. You can't just ignore the ones that you don't like or you think are a bit dodgy, because they might actually end up having your dream home listed for sale. You've got to deal with everybody. You just can't go, like, even as a buyer's agent, we just can't go, oh my God, I just can't stand working with that person. I'm not going to buy anything off them. It just doesn't work that way.
There's been plenty of times we've wanted to, I tell you, certainly in my business, and we have to work a strategy internally around how to deal with certain individual agents. And that's because we do this day in, day out. And in fact, some agents are so annoying to deal with for buyers that we actually get business purely because they've got a listing that the buyer wants. They come to us and say, oh, I was going to do it all myself, but, Joe Blow over there, he's the one with the listing and I can't stand him, so therefore I'm going to engage you.
They want to remove themselves from that process.
Some of those shocking agents have been the best things for our business, I tell you. But be that as it may, it's a struggle for us too at times, because some of them are particularly difficult. Now, they are the exception to the rule where they're that bad, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But
I would say that we deal with far more good, quality, honest agents than we deal with dodgy, unethical snake agents. It's way more in the positive than it is in the negative. But you aren't going to come across them.
Yeah, and also, however, the good agents will use dialogue. Their job is to get an offer out of you. They know how to work it. They know how to work you. They know more information than you know, and learning their dialogue is really important so that you can avoid being sort of, lulled into making an offer when you weren't ready. There's lots of things that they can do to cause you to act.
Yeah. So I guess, back to this number 1, Veronica, in that the agent represents the seller, that doesn't mean that they're not going to treat you with respect sometimes. Doesn't mean that they're not going to be friendly towards you. That doesn't change the relationship that they have with the seller and what their job actually is. And we talk about, and Veronica, you've got a great saying, which is you catch more flies with honey. So,
which is funny because you think, why do you want to catch flies? But anyway, but it's sort of a truism, right? Acid doesn't get them.
And it speaks to, that whole way of approaching. It doesn't matter who it is in your life, really. I mean, imagine you're out there and you're trying to get something that you want. You're not going to get it by strong arming. I was fortunate to have purchased a ticket to see a live stream of Barack Obama in March, and one of the things that he said actually there, and this is not a male-female thing, it's more of an observation, is he would like to see women run every country for a period of 2 years, because his belief is that there's this very patriarchal kind of way of strong-arming that world leaders have who are male. And his experience in dealing with female world leaders during his time and subsequent time after being president was that they have a much more empathetic and caring side. So the way they conduct themselves in politics is really quite different. And what I liked about that is it sort of speaks a little bit to this, catch more flies with honey. And where he was going was to say that you can get a better outcome sometimes if you work in harmony with someone, even if you have different opinions, different ways of doing things. You can actually reach a way of moving forward with someone in a way that is pleasant if you can control the narrative in that way, or if you can guide the narrative in that way. And I really quite liked that. And I think it works with real estate agents as well, because if you go in there and you're either holding your cards so close to your chest that, you're not telling, you're misleading them by telling them that your price range is this when it's really this. And then you're getting frustrated because you're not getting the kind of information, answers or interest from the agent that you want. And we had a client come to us the other day, I bought from them about 11 years ago, and they're ready to downsize now. And they came to us because it was a real sort of last minute, spur of the moment decision. So we sat down, we did a strategy session, had a look at whether this is the right decision for them, then was it the right property? And then they said, look, we don't want to deal with this agent. We asked him a few questions and he just dismissed us and he was really arrogant and we didn't like it. Now, when we took that over and actually went to the agent said, oh my God, I had no idea they were interested. They showed absolutely no interest in the property. And they didn't return my calls when I did the follow-ups. I had no idea they were interested. He's not a bad agent. They were giving him all the wrong signals. They weren't engaging with him to show that they had interest so that he could spend the time then to give them the information that they needed.
So I think wrapping up number one here is that you've got to understand who the agent is representing, and you've got to deal with them in a respectful way, understanding that and not getting defensive because of that. Not just generally being pissed off because they're doing their job. Now, some of them might do their job really badly in our view, but at the end of the day, if we recognise they're not working for us, we might have less expectation of them.
I think that's a good point. That's a great point.
Number 2,
ask the right questions. Get to the point here.
Take everything that is given to you and everything that is said to you as rumour, as Meighan likes to say, until independently proven true. Take it with a grain of salt. It's like, okay, fact check the lot. It's like, I will take that as rumour until I see proof.
And that's everything. That's the brochure that you get handed. That's the floor plan that you're looking at. It's the videos.
The direction. Yeah. That's the actual where north is on the floor plan. How many times have you seen that pointing in the wrong direction?
Absolutely. And also, even things, so, people can make mistakes. That's what we're saying. There can be mistakes. There's not always an intent to mislead. There can just be, I remember there was no door through to a laundry. It looked like you had to go into the laundry from outside. It's just a mistake. It was an omission. There was a door.
Yeah. There's a wall where a door should have been. Yeah.
That's an error. But you can actually take that floor plan with you and walk through a property and go, oh, okay, that's not quite right. Yeah, okay. That's, you're not going to measure every room probably at that point in time, but you can look at how does the actuality compare to the floor plan or the ad. If it says that it's north facing, which bit's north facing?
Yes.
Like, is it the front or the back? Because that's different.
Yep. And look, as I mentioned earlier, due diligence is your job. It's, because...
Can you just say that again, Veronica? Can you just say that point again?
I'll spell it out. Due diligence is your job, not the agent's job. And the agent is not required to tell you everything that you need to know before buying that property. And this may be a shock to people. We talked about caveat emptor, which is Latin for buyer beware. This may be a shock. It was a shock to me. In New South Wales, we have vendor disclosure. There's certain things a vendor has to tell you, right? And I still don't think that's adequate. In Queensland, they tell you
very limited stuff.
A sliver more than bugger all, really. I mean, they're basically to tell you if they're fighting with a neighbour or if the pool is or isn't compliant. Something to do with smoke alarms. Is that it?
Yeah, and a safety switch. Yeah.
Oh, a safety switch. Yeah, forgot about that.
Yeah. Of course, there's other disclosures with strata, but for freehold property, that's pretty much it.
So they don't have to tell you the land size. They don't have to tell you if it's in a flood zone. They don't have to tell you it's a bushfire zone. They don't have to tell you whether or not there's a mortgage or a caveat on it or an easement. They don't have to tell you any of that stuff that is absolutely discoverable.
Easement and caveat. Sorry, Veronica. An easement,
they do
yes.
tell you that.
An easement, yes.
Apologies.
But there is a general response that agents have been instructed. Some agents have been instructed by their legal representatives to say that every property has an easement. So it kind of gets them out of saying yes or no. It's just always there, unless it's a registered easement, and then the easement dealing number has to be on the contract.
That is a classic. So. Yeah, or the other thing, they don't have to give you a sewer diagram.
No, they don't. You and in fact, you may not even get one during your conveyancing. But if you do get it during the conveyancing, if your contract is not subject to conveyance search results, then there's nothing you can do if you find a sewer. If you haven't done your due diligence, and in your first time buyer guide, we show you how to get this information for free online, and what you need to get, what you need to do when you find it.
You have to pay for the course, but we show you where to get the information for free.
Wind that back.
Look, even, you know what? Because I've also got a buyer's agent mentoring program for new buyer's agents, right? And so in doing that, I've researched the pathway to become a buyer's agent across the whole country. Now, buyer's agents and real estate agents have to get the same license, okay?
And a buyer's agent mostly does the education for a real estate agent.
Yes, but you know what? Neither of them get taught how to do this stuff. We're teaching you in this course stuff that a real estate agent might not even actually know how to do. And it's shocking that they don't, because I have to tell you, yes, when I did my license all those years ago, I didn't know how to do it either. I was taught by the experienced agents in our sales office when I was a sales agent, and also my principal, the owner of the business, her husband was a lawyer. So he used to come in and train us on contracts and all the rest of it. So we were very, very privileged to be given detailed instruction.
That's actually a high level of information you were given there, and quite thorough.
It was really good. And even at the time, I mean, I was appreciative of it. It's only in retrospect that I went, how appreciative, right? So we do, and we have imparted some of this knowledge that Meighan and I both have from our many, many years of experience. We've imparted within the course and in the due diligence process. And as I said, I teach new buyers agents how to do this, and it's a revelation to them. They don't come out knowing how to do it. So sales agents would also not know how to do it. So there was that.
But it's not their job to either.
No, it isn't. Although if
that's the thing we want you to know as well.
But if they're making a representation, so say that they're saying their land size, as in the example in the Four Corners story. Now, that was made even worse because it was a sales agent, wasn't not just selling a property, but he's selling his own property. You would think that he would know if it was 8 acres or 5 acres, you would think he would know. Clearly he didn't, but there's a possibility he didn't know. There's a possibility that he doesn't know how to check,
which is mind-blowing. And yeah, it's mind-blowing that he, one, got that wrong in 2 places on the advertising, not just one, so it's not a typo, 2 places on the advertising. But then why wasn't it picked up by the solicitor?
Well, here we go.
Because
solicitors often don't look at the marketing of a property. They just look at the contract.
Absolutely not.
Also, a survey is not a prescribed document any jurisdiction, right? And a survey is the document that will confirm the land size, but there is another way that you can know the land size. And a solicitor, if they were checking that, could have found out very, very easily. And in fact, this buyer could have found out very easily. Clearly, if you're not using a property specialist who goes to that little extra detail to check these things, it's going to get missed. If you don't know what you're doing and what to look for, it's going to get missed. And if you're believing the agent and the agent also doesn't know what to look for and where to get that information, it's going to be missed. So the misrepresentation is unconscionable in my view, because he's a real estate agent, should know better, plus it's his own property. But I can understand exactly how this could have unfolded.
Absolutely. And I want to go back to that point about the conveyance process, because it goes back to, and my heart breaks for these people. They got 3.5 acres less than they paid for, and can do less with the property than they thought that they could because of the size of it. But I want to go back to that solicitor. It is quite possible the solicitor did that search and found the correct information. But if if the buyer then isn't looking at the information that solicitor has uncovered and provided and comparing that to what their expectations are or the advertising is, it's actually the buyer who sits between those two that has to put those things together and say, this is the actual, this is the real, this is the fact. How does that compare to what my expectation is or how this has been marketed to me? And if those two things don't marry up, then you know that there's a problem with how it's been represented. But if you've got someone who says over here, it's this size, and you're not then joining the dots between what you think it should be and what it actually is, then that sits somewhat in your court, or if you have a buyer's agent, in their court, to double check these things as part of your due diligence.
Yes. So we will labour this point a bit more, really, that it is your responsibility as a buyer to know what you need to know. Because a lot of people just assume that if the contract was looked at by a lawyer, that it must be fine, because they abdicated all of their responsibility to somebody who isn't necessarily checking the things that they think they're checking. They're checking something else. So this is, just go on and on about lots of examples of similar examples of this happening.
Think about renovations and additions.
Yes.
That's a classic
example.
One. If you're looking at a property that, say, has a deck or a garage that is an addition, or it's bigger than it used to be when it was originally built, so it's had another story added or something like that. It's got a pool. Those things all have to be certified by the local council, the local government authority. And if the ad says that it's there and you pay for it, then it's up to you to check that it was actually appropriately certified and built to the code of the day or the plans of the day. Because otherwise there's problems, there's real issues.
I've just got example after example after example going through my brain as you're talking there, Meighan. I mean, I'll give you two really super short ones. And this happens, what actually happens is in a hot market, when there's, when the buyer's panicked and they really want to buy that property, they'll overlook this stuff and they'll take shortcuts. And this is where it can cost you. So we had a client looking at a property. It was actually in Balmain, in Sydney, and it had a back gate for parking. Parking is quite a premium in Sydney, probably on estimate around only about 20% of properties have parking. So it's very, very prized, right? And then because one of the things that we check is that what was approved in the renovation and what was built, so what's on the floor plan versus what was approved, are the same thing. And so we always request additional information from the agent. We got that additional information. In that, it actually specifically said that parking was not approved.
Oh, wow.
When we took it up with the agent was quite belligerent around it and says, well, vendor solicitor says it is approved. And I'm going, but they've got a council document here saying it's not. Vendor solicitor says it is. I'm going with what they say. Of course you are, And so they refuse to disclose it.
It's not the agent's job to do any further investigation because their solicitor has told them that.
True, although, this is murky world, right? And so they just refuse to disclose that to any other buyers. So we disclose it because we know what to ask for. It's back to knowing the questions to ask.
I would
You knew
imagine
what
that
to
would make a
ask.
big difference in the price that you would
Huge
pay.
difference to price. So we still went for it, but we went for it with a much lesser budget, and needless to say, we didn't buy it. And so that is just one example. Another example was a property we looked at. A client came to me and said, I love this house, and had this full-on underground excavation. Down there was, a very glamorous bathroom, weirdly enough, and a laundry, and this room that had no windows, and it was set up like a bedroom. Now, I know,
Alarm bells.
well, exactly, no windows in a bedroom is not a bedroom. It's probably a storeroom. And so I'm like, oh, can you please give me a copy of the plans as were approved from council? And then she sheepishly says to me, and she styled this. This isn't like people living there and someone using it as a bedroom. This agent has overseen the styling, which meant she said to the stylist, put a bed in there. So she's culpable here. She's advertising it as a bedroom when it is not a bedroom. And if people don't know this, they look at a house and go, how many beds? They've got 4 beds in it, so it's 4 bedroom, and on the floor plan, it had a bed on it. When I requested what was approved so I could compare, we discovered that not only was that room meant to be a storeroom, as I suspected, it was meant to be a third of the size. So what they'd actually done, they started excavating to create the storeroom, which was approved. They went, might as well just keep going, keep going, make the room bigger.
They're not making any more land.
Had to actually build basically rip it, all the tiles out and everything, put a better brick wall back in. So they basically 2/3 of that room is now behind a better brick wall with no access because they were busted. And I'm like, you have to do something about that.
And I guess that's the thing. I mean, we don't want to go too far into due diligence here and impacts of these sorts of things, but it is, I think I just want to see that through, and that is there are ramifications if you purchase a property that doesn't have appropriate certification for use, and that can be as serious as the local government authority may issue a show cause notice if they become aware of something that is not a legal structure or hasn't been built with the appropriate approvals and certification. That show cause notice often is issued with either make it compliant or rip it down, make good. And insurance does not cover unapproved structures. So if something happened on your property, whether that be, a major storm event or a flood or whatever, that's not going to be rebuilt by your insurance isn't going to cover it. But not only that, it could put in jeopardy your entire insurance policy.
So this is, all very major stuff. And in this particular case, I said to my client, what are you going to use that room for down there? Oh, I want to set up a gym. And I'm like, well, if it was a third of the size, can you still get all your equipment in there? Well, no, it wouldn't suit me at all. And so imagine if they bought it to set up the gym and then council had forced them to make it smaller. Or even if, and I said, okay, well, if you are going to go for this house, you have to not count that in the pricing. So we priced that as a 3-bedroom house, not a 4-bedroom house.
Yep, which is appropriate.
Which, of course, somebody else who didn't know any better would probably price it as a 4-bedroom house, So that's how you can easily overpay for property as well.
Absolutely.
So asking the right questions. So we've talked about, spent a lot of time talking about the first 2 points. What's number 3?
Let's go to number 3. And you touched on this earlier, and that is agent speak. So our top, number 3 tip for you is to watch their language. A lot of agents use what's called puffery in the industry, and they're very passionate, but don't let it sway you. So, the script and dialogue that agents are taught to help them handle objections. And objections might be where you're walking through a property and you go, oh, yeah, look, it's okay, but I don't like, or this bit doesn't suit me. That's an objection. And agents have awesome script and dialogue to be able to reframe in your own mind how you could overcome that issue or get you to think that it's not an issue at all. How many times have we seen that, Veronica?
To do it ourselves. We both were sales agents. So I remember walking into houses that were dark and then saying, right, well, let's get a couple of quotes for skylights. The house has still got the wrong aspect. You've got to put skylights in the hallway and
stuff. You've got to look at the bigger picture.
It's not ideal.
Yeah.
But that
natural
was,
light is also airflow. it's a bit hot in this room. An agent might say, oh, well, we've had a quote for air conditioning and that is their way of overcoming an objection, which is fine. That's they're working for the seller. They're trying to get you to buy that property. You need to step back and go, but do I really want to live with air conditioning on all the time? Or do I like to have my windows and doors open and have fresh air? How do I like to live? Electricity costs are going up. Do I really want to be paying for that all the time? So whilst it's really good that they have these ways of coming up with ideas that can help you overcome things. So a big one is for a lot of young families where the children are quite little, parents want the bedrooms to be pretty close, same proximity, most of the time on the same level if it's a 2 or 3 level house. And agents, the sort of thing that can come out is, well, they won't be little forever and then you'll want your own space. So they're trying to get you to think well in advance, well into the future about how you might use the house instead of the next 8 years where those kids are going to get out of bed 2 or 3 times a night and want to find you, and they're going to fall up the stairs and down the stairs, and you're going to fall up the stairs and down the stairs getting to them. So, the ways of handling objections, that's what they're trying to do. And that's why they're good at what they do. That's why they sell houses and get buyers to buy houses that do have objections, that do have challenges. But you just need to be able to step back and go, okay, what does that really impact me? Is that really what I want? Yes, that sounds like a good solution, but is it really right for me?
That's it. So they're very good at persuasion, and just remember that and try to put the cone of silence down, so your protection, your Teflon coating. Number 4 is knowing their process. Honestly, we can't stress this enough, like everything else we're stressing too, but this is, don't assume that they do the same, they all act in the same way. Don't assume that they handle offers in the same way. Don't assume that they handle their owners in the same way. Don't assume that they will prepare for auctions in the same way or run their auctions in the same way. And particularly when you're making offers, it's very important to understand the process and so then you can be more strategic. And we do teach this in the course as well. And there is a definite framework that you can use to approach this, because if you assume they're all the same, you're only going to get it right some of the time.
You can't even assume that the same agent is going to do things the same way, because each owner is different and each owner might provide different instructions to the agent as to how they want things done. So just even assuming that if you go to 3 properties with the same agent, don't assume that their auction process or their private treaty offer process is going to be the same, because it's also about the owner
and other buyers. Like, they're going to do it differently if there's 1 buyer or if there's 3, So, and you've got to sort of start to learn, okay, what are the signs to look for? How can I know they're bluffing or not? And this is really hard stuff to know. This is stuff that we do teach because it's really important to know, so you don't get sucked into what you want to do is have your eyes wide open when you're negotiating with them, so that you can, by knowing their process, you can make decisions along the way. Whereas if you don't know their process, if you don't know their process, you are then at the mercy of their process. And you're blind to it and your head's spinning. You think, what the hell is even happening?
Yeah. And that's when people turn around and say, oh, I didn't know you were going to sell that before the auction. I would have paid that, because they haven't known what the process would be. They haven't known. And we're going to talk about our number 5. We're going to get onto this in a minute. But if you don't know how things are going to be handled, you might be preparing for an auction in 4 weeks, but offers come in week 2. And if you don't know that that's a possibility, and you haven't shown your hand to the agent, you haven't expressed interest in the property, then you might be completely cut out of the process because the agent doesn't even know that you've got any interest. Now, that would be frustrating if your dream home went because you didn't know what the process was going to be.
Yeah. Well, you're just not ready. Other buyers are ready. You're not. Can't do anything about it. They're going to get it.
That's true. All right. Number 5 in our top 5 ways of dealing with agents is actually Home Buyer Academy home buying principle number 12. And that is, don't let the process of the negotiation impact on your decision to buy a property. Wow, how many times have we been at a barbecue and someone has said, oh, it was just so hard. I walked away. You go, but what? Who did you punish there? It didn't punish
yourself.
anyone else.
Like, oh, hello, that's called, cutting out. Is it cutting your nose off to spite your face?
You're full of these today, Veronica.
I know. I was just like, whatever. Anyway,
I'm walking cliche today.
I'm a walking, talking cliche. So the other one is that people say, "Oh, I'm not going to buy because that's auction. It's going to auction. I'm not going to go for it. I'm not going to go for it because going to auction." It's like it might be the best possible property for you, and you need to learn the process. Learn the process. Learn how to deal with auctions. So that is a classic example of where somebody's method of sale dictates whether someone's going to go for the property or not. That's nuts.
It's insane because if that's a good property, it is achievable within your price range and it fits the criteria that you've got, not the perfect, but the perfectly imperfect home, then it doesn't matter how it's being sold. It doesn't matter who's selling it, and it doesn't matter what the process is. Because if you keep your eye on that longer term vision of this is the right property, I've done my due diligence, I know everything I need to know, I've priced this property really well, and I know what I'm prepared to pay. Doesn't matter if it's an auction, doesn't matter if it's a multiple offer. I've seen people pull out of I haven't seen them, I've heard of people who pull out of negotiations just because other people have made offers. Now, I mean, that's the cornerstone of a property that has a high interest. A good quality property will have a high level of interest. So if you're only going to put offers on places that no one else is going to make an offer on, I'd question what you're buying.
Yeah.
You might
100%. I mean, this is the thing, we don't like to compete because you want a clear runway, but at the same time, you gain confidence by the fact somebody else wants it. So there's social proof in that as well. So that can lead to another difficulty where here's another one. You can go to auction. Right, you're there ready to buy it. You think, oh, no one else is registered. What's wrong with it? I won't do anything then. And it's like, well, actually, this is what you've been wanting.
It's the perfect situation.
If you've done all your due diligence, if you're priced it appropriately, you're in the box and you're ready to buy. You're in the box seat. Use this to your advantage. But quite often, and so that's an example of the process of negotiation impacting your decision to buy as well, because you're thinking, oh, there must be something wrong with it. And it's like, well, actually, no, you've done all your work. If you've done it, obviously, if you've turned up not having done any due diligence, yeah, sure. Maybe everyone does know something you don't know. Don't go to auction. Don't go starting negotiation without doing your due diligence. But, if you have and you're ready, and we've done that, well, we went to auction for a client a couple of weeks ago, and we knew there were potentially 3 people on this property, and we ended up being the only people there. Well,
and that can be a number of circumstances, not to do with the property. Sometimes that's to do with the buyers themselves. Maybe the bank didn't come through with the finance approval in time. Maybe they've just found out they're pregnant. Maybe they've just decided they're going to separate. Maybe there's job uncertainty. It can have nothing to do with the property at all if bidders are lost.
That's it. And the thing is that you don't know the circumstance of other buyers. Luck has a lot to do with it, right? Luck can go the vendor's way. I've seen people rock into an auction that saw the property for the first time that day and go stupid. I've seen that happen enough times to know it happens, right? And on the flip side of that, I've been at auctions where it's like it's like the Stephen Bradbury moment. That's what we call it in our business. The Stephen Bradbury moment is when all the fastest skaters fell over. Stephen Bradbury wasn't even a medal hope, and all of a sudden he's got a gold. Ice skating.
He got to the ground. He got to that final.
He was in the race.
That's the thing. He did the preparation. He did the hard work. He made it to the final, and he gave himself the best opportunity. So when the others fell away, he earned that.
He did. So that's what we call it in our office. It's like, the only way we're going to get this property, sometimes it is, but the only way we're going to get this property is a Stephen Bradbury moment. There's a slim chance.
But you've got to be there.
But you can't ignore it because there is a chance. But we know there's a slim chance, so it's like we have to be ready. We get there, and there's like, yeehaw, all the other skaters fell over. Or you didn't get it because the fastest skaters got it, and you sort of knew that, but you had to be there because, and so this is a very important principle, is not you letting your head get in the way. It's going and approaching buying property in a very systematic, step-by-step way. so that you can make really clear decisions on this. And you won't be devastated if you miss out either, because you've got your eyes open.
Yep. And if you follow our 5 tips, plus the additional information that you'll find in your first home buyer guide, then it doesn't matter who the agent is. You actually will put yourself in a position of knowledge. You'll be an empowered first home buyer, and it doesn't matter what the agent says, because you know how to verify the information. You know how to stand independently, and you know how to make sure that you are in the right place at the right time with the right information to take advantage of any opportunity.
In this episode, we've covered a very small part of our 10-step online course for first-time buyers. If you would like to learn more about the process and how to buy without making a mistake, then head over to our website, www.homebuyeracademy.com.au. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss an episode. And if you like what you've heard today, please give us an iTunes review. 5 stars would be wonderful. It will help others find us as well.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you found this really useful. And if you have, please share the love with others who you know are in the same boat. We'll be back next week with some more priceless stuff.